Hello and welcome to my book review for Winter Birds by Jim Grimsley. This is an adult fiction novel set in rural North Carolina in the 1960s about a young boy and his family suffering under the abuse of the patriarch. This is a semi-autobiographical novel that basically just centers around the pain of abuse and what that does to a person. I gave this 4 stars. I thought this was beautifully written and about such a horrifying subject, and it is so graphic and so painful to read, but the beauty of the writing really shines through. I really enjoyed reading this. I think one thing that I really loved was that juxtaposition between the writing and the subject matter, because the writing is absolutely stunning. It's so beautiful, it's so lyrical, it flows so well, and at the same time you hold it in contrast with the subject, with the father's horrifying abuse, with everything that he does to his family, and that undercurrent of fear that flows throughout the book, and it works really well. I think by contrasting both of those elements like that, it really magnifies both of them. It makes the writing seem more beautiful, more lyrical, more pure, and then it makes the abuse seem even more horrific. It was just really well done. Specifically, the writing style, I love second person. It's so hard to do well. I don't read many books that attempt it, and of those that attempt it, I feel like most of them don't do it particularly well, but it was well done here. It feels so natural with the book. It doesn't ever feel like you're being jarred out of the story or that they're talking to you, the reader. The you of this story is a very specific person who's very well developed, and that person is not the reader, and it worked so well. It was an absolute joy to read the writing. I did feel like this book was missing something. As much as I love the writing and as good as the story was and like the way the moments were written, it did feel like it was missing sort of a narrative, something that kind of held it together and gave it more meaning than just a story of abuse. It did feel like it needed to take an extra step and never quite got there. I don't know what specifically would have made it better, but I do wonder if that has something to do with the semi-autobiographical nature of this book. I don't know how true to Jim Grimsley's life this is. I know that the young boy in here has an abusive father and has hemophilia, just like Grimsley does, and grew up in North Carolina just like Grimsley, so I don't know if this is just like him recounting his memories in a slightly fictionalized format or if he changed major events, but it does kind of feel like memories, which I enjoy. Like, I think that was really well done. It feels like you're reading a collection of memories that go together, that all tie in together, but it feels like it's missing like that final conclusion. You don't necessarily need closure, but I did need something a little bit more than what this book was giving. The family dynamic in this book was really stunning. You get to know the family so well because in many respects, they're the only characters who matter here. You have Danny Krell, who is the main character, who starts this book as a very young child suffering from hemophilia. His mother's constantly telling him to be careful. If he gets like a minor cut or especially a major injury, he can wind up in the hospital for months just bleeding because no one knows how to stop the bleeding and just getting constant blood transfusions. And you see that dynamic play out in the family as they're having more children and constantly scared that more of their kids will have hemophilia since it's hereditary. I also found it interesting how their relationship with their father changes throughout the book. He's always abusive, but in different ways and to different degrees. You witness him stop drinking at a point, and you see the family sort of knitting together a little bit as the abuse limits, but you also see the children who are aware that this is not going to last forever, that this is a temporary thing, and you see some of the children really embrace their fathers. Like, this is, the only time I feel like I can trust him. This is the only time I feel like I can build that relationship with him. And then you see other children in the family continuing to pull away because there's no point. Eventually he will become abusive again. And you also see how it changes their relationship with their mother and how that develops throughout the story. The love and the trust that they have in her gets kind of broken in the same ways that their relationship with their father is broken. And it's just really artfully done. Like, the way the relationships are constructed and the way that they break throughout the book. It was so beautiful. It was just absolutely gorgeous. I do want to say a warning, the abuse in this is incredibly graphic. It happens throughout the book. It's very detailed, very gory in some ways. There are many trips to the hospital. The main character has hemophilia, and so does one of his siblings. So there is a lot of fear in that regard of like, these children could very easily be killed by this abuse, even when it's not directed specifically at them. It was just a really, really well done book, and it breaks your heart to read. I would highly recommend it if you enjoy second person, really beautiful writing, lit fic, semi-autobiographical novels like this. It was a wonderful depiction of life in rural North Carolina in the 60s. It was a wonderful depiction of a family that's broken by abuse, and just absolutely gorgeous writing. I really, really enjoyed it. And interestingly enough, despite the fact that this is an American novel by an American author set in rural North Carolina, this book was first published in German, which, as far as I could tell, the author has no connection to Germany, doesn't speak German. Could be wrong, but from my research, I couldn't find a connection. It was just that he couldn't get this published in the United States because of how dark it was and how brutal the violence was in this book. And he published it in Germany first, and it was only published in America 2 years later, which it doesn't really affect any of the thoughts in this review, but it was just an interesting factoid that I thought I would share. I'm not certain I've ever come across anything like that in my reading before. Let me know down below if you've read Winter Birds and what you thought of it if you have. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.